My brother's son got drunk at a family gathering and announced to everyone that I was just the sad aunt who buys love. The room burst into laughter. Even his mother joined in. I quietly left. A few days later, I did something that made their phones light up with panic messages. I wanted to flip the whole table. Every laugh, every shared glance that passed like a private joke, it all stung like a slap. Still, I didn't yell, cry, or throw anything. I didn't storm out like a character in a bad drama. I just stood there silently, while my nephew, the same kid whose rent, tuition, and groceries I'd paid for, mocked me. They all laughed. My brother, his wife, even my mother tried to hide her laughter behind her hand, as if that softened it. No one seemed shocked. They looked almost relieved, like someone had finally said what they'd all been thinking. I left before I said or did something I'd regret. But driving home, one thought kept looping through my head. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. I could have cut them off that night, but I didn't want quick revenge. I wanted something slower, more deliberate. A quiet lesson they wouldn't forget. He wanted to humiliate me in public. Fine. But he was about to learn exactly who held the leash he'd been tugging on. What none of them seemed to remember was that Chase's apartment, the one near campus with central air and a fitness center, was under my name. He couldn't legally rent it without me. I found it, paid the deposit, and arranged everything. His parents didn't do a thing. That same night, while they were probably still laughing over dinner about how Aunt Grace finally cracked, I was on the phone with his landlord. The man was polite, a little confused, but cooperative. I offered to cover an extra month and the relisting fee if they cleared the unit within the week. By morning, the paperwork was done. Chase would get his notice by email and a knock on the door. When I woke the next day, I had 22 unread messages. The first was from my brother. "What did you do?" The second from Chase. "Are you serious right now?" The third was a missed call from my mom. I didn't respond to any of them, and that's when the real panic began. He hadn't even checked his email. According to his roommate Trent, apparently Chase had been up all night gaming and woke up around noon to find an eviction notice taped to the door. At first he thought it was a prank, then a mistake, then he started yelling. Meanwhile, I was at home in silk pajamas, pouring oat milk into my coffee and scrolling through property listings. I wasn't planning to buy anything. I just liked knowing I could. The calls started piling up before noon. I let them stack, curious to see how many they'd make before giving up. My brother jumped straight to anger, texting 4 times in a row, "You need to fix this. This isn't funny." He has nowhere to go. I could almost hear his familiar tone, that spoiled bark he'd had since childhood, whenever someone dared to tell him no. Kayla, his wife, tried the gentle route. She was always the cleaner, the one who came in after Nate's messes, trying to patch things up with calm words. "Grace, let's not make this worse. Can we talk like family?" Family. That word had started to feel like a chain. What none of them understood was that I hadn't snapped. I'd simply paused. I finally saw them clearly, and I'd quietly picked up the scissors. That afternoon, my phone filled with messages that all said the same thing in different tones. Guilt disguised as concern. Concern disguised as judgment. No one asked how it felt to be laughed at, to be publicly ridiculed by the very people I'd been supporting for years. Then came the family group chat, one I hadn't seen light up since Christmas. Apparently they'd kept using it even after they removed me last January for missing my father's birthday. Now suddenly, I was welcome again. Mom started first. "Grace, please. You've made your point. Can we calm down?" Then Dad, "This isn't how we handle things. Chase is young. You made your point. Family doesn't turn on each other over a joke." Kayla added her own. "You stir better than this." Not one of them mentioned the insult. Not one said what Chase did was wrong. It was all about how I'd reacted. That night, I went to dinner alone, to my favorite little Japanese restaurant. where they know my name and always bring a complimentary mochi. I turned my phone face down and let it buzz until the battery died. I had miso soup, yellowtail sashimi, and 2 glasses of plum wine. When I finally checked my phone, Nate had sent one last message. "So this is about your sad little ego and that crooked nose. Thought you'd outgrown middle school drama. Guess not." That seps when the amusement stopped. The next morning, I called my accountant. I stopped Chase's tuition payments, froze the credit card I'd given Nate, just for emergencies, and canceled the rent support for my parents' condo, quietly, efficiently. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to find out what happens when the wallet walks away. By 8 a.m., the missed calls began. Nate, Mom, Dad. Then voicemails. I didn't listen to any. By noon they figured it out. Nate's card was declined. Chase was living out of his car, with a basket of clothes and a useless microwave. And my parents, their monthly deposit didn't arrive like it had for 7 years. That's when the real chaos started. Mom left 6 voicemails before switching to text, asking if I was okay, if I'd been hacked, or drinking. Dad even called from his office line, something he hadn't done in years. I ignored them all. Nate didn't bother pretending. "You're punishing everyone because your feelings got hurt. Grow up. You think you're untouchable because you have money now. You forget who was there for you when you were nobody. This is cruel. You're not a queen, just bitter and alone." Bitter and alone. Funny how when you give, it's gratitude at first, then expectation, then silence. But the moment you stop, you become the villain. I wasn't cruel. I was precise. For years, they'd relied on me quietly. No thanks, no acknowledgement, just comfort, funded by my effort. New clothes, better schools, vacations that somehow worked out, and the moment I stopped, their world collapsed in a day. The best part? When Chase finally texted, "I'm sorry. I was drunk. It was a joke. Can we fix this?" I stared at it for a while, then blocked his number. By the end of the week, Kayla sent a long Facebook message from a backup account. Pages of guilt disguised as reason. "They were just joking," she said. "I was throwing away relationships over one night." But it wasn't one night, it was years. And they all knew it. That weekend, my parents set what felt like a trap. They invited me to brunch. "Just us," Mom wrote. "No drama." Out of curiosity, I agreed. But when I arrived, there they were, Nate, Kayla, and Chase, already seated, pretending it was casual. I turned around and walked out without saying a word. It took them 3 more days to realize I wasn't coming back. Then Dad texted, trying to sound calm but clearly uneasy. "We didn't handle things well. Your mother's upset. Let's fix this. We just want our family back." I stared at the message over my coffee and set the phone down. That was the difference now. I didn't rush to explain, to apologize, or to smooth things over like I always used to. They wanted the old version of me, the quiet one who paid, forgave, and kept peace, no matter the cost. But she didn't live here anymore. 2 silent days must have pushed them too far, because Nate showed up at my condo. I'd never invited him over, but apparently my parents had given him the address. Maybe they thought I'd be too polite to shut the door in his face. He rang the bell, knocked, waited. I watched from my security camera as he stood there in yesterday's jeans, pacing, pulling out his phone, probably texting Mom for guidance. Then he shouted toward the door, "So this is it. You think you're better than us? Money makes you untouchable." I didn't move, didn't answer, didn't even blink. He eventually walked off, flipping off the doorbell camera on his way out, like a teenager throwing a tantrum. It was so absurd, I actually laughed. The next day, a letter arrived. My mother's handwriting, neat, careful. Inside, she wrote about forgiveness, about family bonds, about how Chase didn't mean it, and Nate was just stressed. She said families argue, that I was taking things too far, and reminded me of everything we'd been through together, as if I hadn't carried them through most of it. but one line stood out. "We know it hasn't been easy, but you've always been the one who holds us together, especially now when things are tough." That was the truth, hiding in plain sight. They weren't sorry. They were scared. Scared of losing the comfort my help had given them. So I wrote back a single paragraph. No emotion, no drama. "You don't get to mock me and live off me at the same time. I'm not your ATM, your therapist, or your fool. I'm done." I printed it, mailed it, and that was it. The next day, I checked the old family group chat. I'd been removed again. This time, no one pretended it was an accident. I thought that after the eviction, the blocks and the letter, things would go quiet. Maybe a few bitter messages, maybe silence. But instead of fading, they started to unravel. It began subtly. A coworker stopped me in the hallway. "Hey, Grace, didn't know your nephew dropped out of school." I froze. That was news to me. I shrugged and walked off, but my mind was spinning. The next day, a cousin I hadn't spoken to since our grandmother Set's funeral tagged me in a Facebook post. A photo of Chase bussing tables in a fast food uniform. The caption read, "Didn't Set he have that nice place downtown? What happened?" Apparently the family's version of events was creative. They were telling people Chase had taken time off school to figure things out, that the family was struggling financially. No mention of who'd been paying for what. No mention of the drunken insult or the laughter that followed. They were rewriting the story, just poorly. People started asking questions, and Chase, once proud of his filtered photos and designer shoes, suddenly vanished from social media. Then came a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Grace. This is Mrs. Ferris, Chase's advisor. I was told you might assist with some paperwork regarding his housing. Can we speak?" I didn't reply. I archived the message. If he wanted to be an adult, he could handle the paperwork himself. But the real surprise came 2 days later. A knock at my office door. My assistant poked her head in. "You have a visitor," says she. "Sits your Aunt Lauren." I hadn't spoken to her in years, but there she was, standing in the lobby, with a latte and a folded scarf. She looked tired but calm, not judgmental, just done. We sat across from each other in the cafe downstairs. She said she'd heard what happened, that Nate had always been this way, that she was sorry it had to be me, who finally stopped feeding the fire. Then she said something that stayed with me. "They only call it betrayal when you stop letting them eat off you." I never forgot that. 2 days later, another box arrived at my door. No return address, light but taped tightly. Inside were every birthday card I'd ever sent Chase. Every holiday note, photos, even the picture of us at the lake when he was 8. The day I took him because his parents were too busy, they'd sent it all back. No note, no explanation, just quiet contempt packed neatly in cardboard. I stood there for a while. Then I put everything back inside, sealed the box, and wrote one word across the top in thick black marker. Donated. The next morning, I dropped it off at a shelter. Let someone else find value in what they threw away. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a solo trip. Not for work, not for family, for myself. Somewhere warm and far, where no one would ask about nephews or holidays or why I was alone. I chose a window seat, first class, and smiled as I clicked confirm. They could keep their silence. I would keep my peace. The trip was meant as a reset. I told no one. Didn't check in with work. I packed a small bag and flew west. 5-star hotel, ocean view, no plans. For the first time in years, I woke up with no obligations. No one to call, no one to please. Just the sound of waves, coffee, and a silence that finally felt like mine. 3 days into that peace, the first shadow crept back. It wasn't a call or a text. It was an email, forwarded by my assistant with the note. "Thought you should see this." It was from Chase's college financial office, sent to my company's billing department. They assumed I was still his financial sponsor. Attached was a letter asking to reinstate a previously agreed private sponsorship. No apology, no explanation, just a quiet attempt to reel me back in, wrapped in polite language. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I walked the beach barefoot for an hour, until I stopped seeing red. Then I wrote the cleanest response of my life. I am no longer involved in Chase Ellison's financial matters. I have not committed to any agreement. Please remove my contact from all correspondence. I copied their legal office, closed my laptop, and ordered a drink. I thought that would end it, but I underestimated them. 2 days later, my company's security office called. Apparently, my father had phoned the front desk pretending to be an investor. He said he needed to confirm my return date and told the receptionist his daughter was unwell and that it was a private family matter. They flagged it and informed HR. That's when I realized this had gone too far. This wasn't about love or family anymore. It was about access. I wasn't a daughter or sister to them. I was a card that stopped swiping. That afternoon, I booked a new hotel, paid in cash, and changed my return flight under my middle name through a different airline, landing at another airport. It wasn't paranoia. It was strategy. I'd seen what they could do when they felt desperate. When I finally came home, I told no one. My phone was off, my curtains drawn. For the first time in years, my apartment felt like mine, not a stopover between their emergencies. I poured a glass of wine and started cleaning house digitally. I blocked every number I hadn't already, deleted group chats, erased saved contacts, removed calendar reminders. Nate's birthday, Kayla's anniversary dinner, Chase's fake graduation. Then something caught my eye, a delivery alert from an unknown sender. It was a package. Inside was an old photo album I'd made for Chase when he was 10. My handwriting still inside the cover. Photos from birthdays, notes of encouragement, little slips of cash taped to cards with "Don't tell your mom" written beside them. No return address, no note. They hadn't destroyed it. They'd returned it, as if to say, this no longer matters. But tucked in the back was a single folded page. Almost missed it. It was from Lauren. Grace, I told them not to send this. I knew you'd see through it, but I also knew you'd open it, because you still remember everything. I'm not like them. Never was. Let me know if you ever want to talk. Not for them, just for us. I sat with that note for a long time. It was the first message in months that spoke to me. Not at me, no guilt, no pressure, just honesty. Later that night, a new group chat appeared on my phone, just the sisters. Lauren had added me. No words, no expectations, just space. I didn't reply, but I didn't leave either. Maybe that's how healing starts. Not with forgiveness, but with subtraction, with silence, with standing still long enough not to be pulled back in. 2 months passed quietly. I kept waiting for something, a letter, a message, another attempt wrapped in false sentiment. But nothing came. No calls from HR, no surprise visitors. It seemed they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. In those 2 months, I breathed differently. I read more, slept better, even started sketching again. Something I hadn't done in years. The sisters' chat stayed peaceful. A few light check-ins from Lauren. A funny meme, a shared article. We never talked about the others. We didn't have to. Then, one rainy Friday evening, I saw someone standing outside my building. I was coming home from work, holding my keys and takeout, when I noticed a figure under the streetlight across the street, Chase. He didn't look angry or wild, just still. He hadn't seen me yet. I waited in the lobby, unsure whether to leave or approach. Curiosity won. I walked toward him. He looked thinner, paler, the arrogance gone from his face. Not guilt, exactly, but something close to confusion, like he finally understood what he'd lost. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. Don't say what you practiced. Just tell me why you her here. He hesitated, then said quietly, I just wanted you to know I get it now. And I am not here to ask for anything. That was new. He looked at me for a long moment, waiting for a reaction, maybe forgiveness. I just nodded. Good. He didn't try to hug me. He didn't plead. He simply turned and walked away into the rain. I didn't cry. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. Later that night, Lauren messaged the sisters' chat. He showed up, didn't he? I replied, yeah. She sent back, they'll keep testing the door, but you're the one who locked it. For the first time, I didn't feel like the villain. I felt like someone who had finally come home to herself.